Hello and welcome to another video. So today I am giving you some recommendations for the prompts on the Royal Readathon Fairies edition. So you might have seen, I will leave the announcement in the description box below, but you might have seen me and Liv posted the announcement for our next round of Royal Readathon, and we posted that last week. So a few of the prompts are a bit harder to think of books, but there are ways of twisting it and thinking up different ways of fitting the prompt, and that's what we like to do. But I thought I would come and give you some recommendations. These are all books I have read, and there's quite a few books for each of the prompts. So I'm just going to get stuck in. I have tried to give you a mix of middle grade, YA and adult for all of them, but some have more than others with like certain age ranges. But there is a mix. There is at least one of each on every single prompt that I'm going to give you. Also, I would just like to add that Liv is also going to be doing her own recommendations video. We have talked through these so that we don't give you the same recommendations. So you're going to have two videos full of recommendations, and they will all be different because we have shared our lists with each other and we have no doubles, so we got your back here. So yeah, I will link Liv's channel and socials in the description box below so you can go check her out. I do not know when she is going to be posting her video, so if she has posted her video before this goes up, I will put the link to the actual video, but if not, I'll just put her social link down there and her social links down there, and you can just keep an eye out and she will update when she posts. So without further ado, let's get stuck in with the first prompt, which is for Tink. So the actual prompt for Tink is to reread a book so the story doesn't die. Now obviously this one is completely individual because it will depend on what books you want to reread. However, we have also done it because we do know some people do not like rereading books, which is completely understandable. So we have also done a little twist, whereas if you really do not want to reread a book, you can do a retelling. There are so many retellings out there for all different types of things. It doesn't have to necessarily be a fairy tale or Disney retelling. It can be mythology. It can be anything like that. Just any sort of retelling if you really do not want to reread a book, which is absolutely fine. We're going to allow you to do that. Like, we would not want to force you to reread a book that you don't want to. So, for some retellings. So, middle grade wise, there is literally only one really that I could think to fit to this, and that's the Percy Jackson series. Obviously, I know as this series goes on, it becomes more YA. But for me, this series is middle grade. It's very much written for a middle grade audience. The character starts out as a 12-year-old, which is middle grade. And yes, by the end of the series, he is 16. But for me, I class this as a middle grade, especially the first book. So highly recommend this. This is obviously Greek mythology. Percy is the son of Poseidon, who is a Greek god. So this would definitely fit for this prompt if you would like to read a retelling, and it is middle grade, and it's one that I will literally always recommend since I read it a year ago. Next up, we have an Arthurian retelling, and that's Once and Future by Amy Rose Capetta and Corey McCarthy. I very recently read this, and whilst it was not the best book in the world, I did really enjoy it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, and it's a really good twist on the Arthurian legend. So in this, Arthur and Merlin, well, Arthur is reincarnated over and over again, and Merlin has to train Arthur to defeat the big bad, and the big bad can be like literally anything. It's different for each generation of Arthurs. And in this one, Arthur has reincarnated into a girl. So everything is different this time, and there is some really good rep in this, and I just really enjoyed this a lot more than I thought, and I would definitely recommend this. It is a little bit disjointed with the pacing and the timings and everything, but once you get into it, it's so good. The story is really good, the characters are amazing, and I'm really excited to read the sequel to this, but I would definitely actually recommend this one. Forgot to mention, this is YA. The next few that I'm going to show you are also YA. So first up we have Geekerella by Ashley Poston. This is the first book in the Once Upon a Con series, which also has Princess and the Fangirl and Bookish and the Beast. I would recommend all of them. Obviously it is a series, so you do kind of have to read them in order because the characters do feature in the later books and obviously you'll get spoiled. These books are just so good. So this one is obviously Cinderella. But these are very modernized as well and they're just so good. I love them. They're so much fun. They are very predictable, but it's a YA contemporary. Of course, it's going to be predictable. But yeah, I just really love this and I highly recommend. The next two are from the same author. So first up, we have Cinderella is Dead by Kayleen Bayern. This is kind of a retelling, kind of a continuation, but it's the Cinderella story, so it'll work. So this is 200 years after Cinderella is dead, and this is very much a sapphic romance and fighting the patriarchy. It's chef's kiss. It is amazing and I absolutely adore this. I don't know what else to say about this other than I absolutely love this and I highly recommend this to everyone because it's just incredible and it's really good for a retelling. It works. And then we also have This Poison Heart by Kayleen Bayern. Now this is technically a Secret Garden retelling. I personally don't see it, but it is the author themselves has said that this is a Secret Garden retelling. So under that, I'm putting this on this recommendation list because this book is so good. I am obsessed. I read it very recently. It came out this year and I highly recommend to everyone. It is so good. And if you did like Cinderella is Dead, you will like this one. They are not linked. They're completely different books, but this is amazing. This one is also set in our time and our world as well, which just makes it that little bit better because if you're not a fan of historical type books, this is perfect for you. So yeah, highly recommend this. Yeah. And then the last three are sort of like adult horror retellings. So these are all by the same author. These are all Christina Henry. I love Christina Henry's books. She writes such amazing retellings. So first up we have Alice, which is obviously an Alice in Wonderland retelling. This is very dark. So she is basically put into this asylum and there she meets different, she meets someone who they escape together and then they encounter Cheshire, they encounter Mad Hatter, but it is a very different take on it because obviously it's not a straight retelling, but it's got all the same characters and it's got like Alice trying to find her way, but it is amazing and I 100% recommend this. This is actually part of a 3-book series. I have only read the first one, which is this one obviously, but I really enjoyed it and I do highly recommend this. The next one is Lost Boy, which obviously is a Peter Pan retelling. This again is very dark. Peter's not a nice person, shock horror. But this is really well written and I think this might be my favourite Peter Pan retelling. It's just so good. And this is actually my second favourite Christina Henry book and you're about to see my first favourite, which is The Girl in Red. This is a Red Riding Hood retelling, so slightly off the Disney front, but this is a Red Riding Hood retelling. I will say this does have a pandemic. There's like zombie-like creature things. She's in the woods. She meets someone. She's on her way to her grandmother's house and she has to protect herself. Hence the axe. But this is very dark. It has a twist at the end, which very good. But yeah, I absolutely loved this book and it's really good if you don't want a straight retelling, you just want something that's got hints of the original, because this works really well for that. Okay, so I've already been filming for quite a while and we are only one prompt in. The second prompt is Flora, read a book with a beautiful cover. Now for this, I'm not actually going to recommend any books whatsoever because beautiful cover is very subjective. Beautiful cover to me might be an ugly cover to you. So this one, this is also not based on the book itself at all. It is literally just based on the cover. So for this one, I'm not actually going to recommend anything, but I thought I would just say the reason I'm not recommending anything for this prompt. So the next prompt is Fauna, a book with a fixer-upper. Now, this is one that I think is probably the hardest prompt to fill. So I do have a few options which might also give you an idea for what other sorts of books could fill this prompt. So I only have one middle grade on this one, and then the rest are YA, and there's an adult. So the middle grade is The Dark Deep by Ali Condé and Brendan Rikers. So for this one, there is the main character is bullied. So obviously the bully, the one doing the bullying, is a fixer-upper character, and the character is actually a main character because the whole plot happens because this kid is being bullied by this guy and his friends. So fixer-uppers, so anything with like a bully or anything, that character is definitely a fixer-upper because they could definitely improve and not be a bully, if that makes sense. But this is a really good book. This is also really dark. Dark Deep. It's really dark, but it's so good, and yeah, I highly recommend this book. The next book is The Zombie Series by Darren Shan. So the main character in this is definitely a fixer-upper. She has a lot to improve on. She's not a great person in the beginning, and then she becomes a zombie. Zombie. Her name's B. So yeah, this definitely counts. She's really not a great person, and even the back of it says B. Smith has always had to deal with a racist father and nightmares of killer babies, but life is about to get a whole lot worse. Welcome to B's dark and twisted world. So obviously you can see she doesn't have a great life because of her dad. Next up, we have the Morganville series by Rachel Kane. Of course, I was getting this on there. So this has a lot of fixer-upper characters, but the main one is actually Shane, who is a main character in this series. He is pretty, I can't think of the word, but he's very not a great person. He's not a terrible person, but he's always angry. He's got a lot of issues which stem from his childhood and how the vampires have treated his family. So, but he's definitely a fixer-upper, and I love Shane so much. Also, there's vampires in this, and vampires could definitely be fixer-uppers because, you know, don't be murderers. Next up, we have the adult one, and that's Mayday by Josie Jeffrey. This this is vampires again, but this is also got detectives. So this is like vampire detectives, and the main character is definitely a fixer-upper. She has a lot of issues that she needs to sort out, and it's very like obvious even from the blurb of this one that she is a character that is a bit of a fixer-upper. So this one would definitely count. It's also a really good book, and from an indie author, which we love to support indie authors. And this is a really good book. I do need to read the second one still, so we'll see. The next book is a YA again, and that's The Other Side of Lost by Jessie Kirby. This is a contemporary, and I don't hear anyone talking about this book. I got it in a book box club a few years ago now, and it's so good. It even says find yourself here, but the main character basically she's basically an influencer, and her life is not perfect. Her life is pretty fake. She acts like her life is just so perfect on social media, but really her life is not good. And then she finds out that her cousin, who does hiking and all this really cool like naturey stuff, she's very in touch with herself. She finds out her cousin has died, and she decides to do the hike that her cousin was planning on doing, and she kind of discovers herself and like changes for the better. So this is one I would highly recommend. I absolutely love this, and if you want a bit of a contemporary, then there's a contemporary here, because I know not everyone's into fantasy or like sci-fi or stuff, and I really love this. As someone who's not a massive fan of contemporary, I really loved this. Oh, not a massive fan of contemporary. The next one, is contemporary. So this is The Upside of Fallen by Alex Light. This includes the fake dating trope, and these two characters basically feel like they need to have a boyfriend girlfriend to be better, which that in itself fixer upper, because you do not need a partner to be your best self. You don't. But yeah, this is just such a good story, and it definitely fits on the fixer upper prompt. Also for fixer upper prompt, I can't think of any books in particular for this, but someone did comment on our announcement video asking if they could use a second chance romance book, which obviously a couple have broken up and then they get back together, so second chance romance. Yes, that would 100% work. And Mel, you are a genius for thinking of that, because I did not think of that for this prompt. But yes, 100% second chance romance would definitely work for this. So the next prompt is Merryweather, a book with a disagreement. Now this disagreement could be a battle, a war, any sort of like political or like anything like that sort of like disagreement. It could be a family feud, it could be a friendship feud, it could be anything like that. So I've got a few options. So for middle grade, we have Sky Song by Abby Elphinstone. So this has like an ice queen who is basically trying to take over, and people are fighting back against her. So that counts as a disagreement. This is very loosely counting for this prompt, but I still think it counts. And it's a really good book, and especially at this time of year, it is kind of perfect. So highly recommend this one. Next up, we have The Land of Roar by Jenny Mclachlan. This book is so good, and there is definitely a disagreement, because in this imaginary Land of Roar, we have a kind of war between Crokey, who is this scarecrow who's the bad guy, and Arthur and Rose and all of their friends who live in Roar. So there's definitely a disagreement for this, and it's just such a fun read. I highly recommend this whole series. It's amazing. So the next one is an adult one, and that is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Of course I was putting this on this. I love this book so much. So this one has a fallen kingdom which is rising and trying to take back what was theirs. So there we go, we have like a war type situation. So there's a disagreement on this. This is such a fun read. It's a bit of a chunky one, but it is so worth it. It's an amazing book, and it's also a bit spicy, so if you like that sort of thing, there we go. It's also not fade to black spicy, just wanna, because I don't count fade to black as spice, just saying. Next up, we have Stolen Time by Daniel Rollins. So this is the first book in a sci-fi YA trilogy, and it's set in the future where tsunamis have just destroyed Seattle, and Seattle is now like above water level has risen, so the city has had to rise with it, and there are gangs in this. So this would fit for disagreement, because obviously rival gangs, there's going to be disagreements there. But I love this. No one ever talks about this, so every opportunity I get, I will shove this in people's faces, because the whole trilogy is so good. Next up, we have another YA, and that's Fire with Fire by Destiny's Soraya. This is two sisters who have a bit of a disagreement. This definitely works. They are from a family of dragon slayers. I was about to say vampire slayers then. No, dragon slayers. And one of them decides she doesn't think she wants to be in the family business anymore. So obviously, huge disagreement. Loads of other things develop in this, and it's just a really good read. This is an amazing book. It was a 5-star for me. Then the final book I'm going to recommend for this prompt is another adult, and that is Realm Breaker by Victoria Aveyard. So with this, there are like immortals, there's mortals, and there's a war. It's not actually a war between the mortals and the immortals. There are both of each on each side, but there is a war brewing, so this definitely counts, and it's a really good book. Again, it's a bit chunky, but it is so worth it. It's such a good book. So the next prompt is Genie, a book with a found family. So this one, I could recommend a few, but I've actually managed to get a fair mix of all different age ranges. So for middle grade, we have Frost Heart by Jamie Littler. Obviously, Ash has a found family. He He is whisked aboard the Frostheart and he becomes part of their family, and it's just one big happy family. They're so cute. I love them all. They're so adorable, and this book is just such a fun, beautiful read, and there's illustrations which are just absolutely gorgeous, and I really love this series so much. Next up, we have The Train to Impossible Places by P.G. Bell. So in this, Susie accidentally ends up whisked away on this train, which literally goes to impossible places. And she basically becomes like family with the other crew of this train. And it's just so wholesome. It's so adventurous. There's obviously a villain, and it's just chef's kiss. Next up, we have a few YAs. So we have The Paper and Heart Society by Lucy Powery. This is a group of friends who become so close. They go on a little trip in this one, which is really cute. They have to deal with some really tough things, but they kind of become like a little family, and it is just so adorable, and I love it so much. And it's a bit of YA contemporary if you want that. Then we have Sleigh by Kim Curran. No one ever talks about this book, and it makes me sad. This is a boy band who fights demons. And obviously, when you're in a band, you are essentially a family. So this works really well for found family, because they found each other and they're now like a family. Literally, the tagline on the front says, "Meet the biggest band on the planet, killing it on stage, killing demons off of it." It's just amazing. Like, I can't stress just how amazing it is. Then another YA, and I feel like this is the one that you're going to get on all of them. Aurora Rising by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is, of course, a found family, because they're a crew, and they become like family. I don't really need to like describe this prompt, do I? It's just such an easy prompt to fill. But this is such a good book. I still need to read the sequel, but the first one is amazing, and I love the friendships and the family that they become. It's just, yes, I love it. I would die for these characters. And then the last one is actually an adult fantasy, and that is The Iron Crown by L.L. McRae. So this one, a group of characters are like brought together to try and like figure out what the hell's going on in this world, and there's like dragon spirits in it, and the characters coming together and having to learn to like deal with each other, and they have arguments just like an actual family would, and I just think it's just so good. And this again is an indie author who I highly recommend. This is the first book I've read by this author, but it's made me need more, because this book was just so good. And then the final prompt is Fairy Godmother. Read a book with a classic storyline. So basically for this, the easiest thing, if you're a bit stuck on this, the easiest thing would be to read a retelling, because retellings always have the basis of a classic storyline. So obviously anything I recommended for the Tink prompt would also fit for this prompt, because they're all retellings. However, I would also say there are 3 more which are like boy meets girl, boy meets boy, like any sort of like generic love stories are gonna work for this. So I'm gonna recommend a couple of those. So first up, we have Love on the Main Stage by S.A. Domingo. A girl, her family's food truck, like restaurant, have a food truck. They take it to festivals. She meets this boy. They hang out. Love on the Main Stage. Very generic, but I absolutely love it. It's so cheesy, so brilliant, and I am just obsessed with it. Then we have a Boy Meets Boy, and that's The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper. This was such an adorable book. They basically, their parents, I think it's one of their dads and one of their mums are picked to go on this like space mission, and so all the families have to go to, I think it is NASA, yeah, NASA, and stay on a site, because they're basically recording it for a reality TV show as well. And these 2 boys meet, obviously, because all the families are like in each other's pockets, and love blossoms, and it is just so adorable. I absolutely love it. And then it wouldn't be this sort of recommendation without recommending Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. Nick and Charlie, it literally just says there, boy meets boy. If you know me, you know how much I love this story so much. And It's very quick to read, so if you're looking for something short to add on, this is perfect. But I highly recommend this as well. This is one of my all-time favourites ever, and I just love everything about it. It's so cute and adorable, and I just love Nick and Charlie with all my heart. And I just want all the happiness for them. They're just so adorable. So that's all the recommendations I have for you today. Obviously, these are all books that I have read myself. I wouldn't recommend a book that I hadn't read, which is why Liv's recommendations are going to be different to mine, because she has read some different books to me. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this video has helped you. Even if you don't pick any of these books, hopefully it has given you some ideas for what you can pick. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you are going to take part in Royal Readathon Fairies edition in November. It is, of course, November the 1st to November the 30th. We are both very excited for it. There are going to be lots of reading sprints, and we're just very much looking forward to having you join us on this month's readathon. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next time. Bye.